The screen which you see right now has proceed to checkout option. In this section, we are going to see when a user clicks on proceed to checkout, one has to log in. The login, the authentication functionality we are going to implement in this section. So to install the React Google login, I'm going to say yarn add react-google-login. Now I'll just start the application. Now the next step is that I'm going to change the client application. I'm going to create a login component, and that component will be called when the proceed to checkout option is clicked. So let me just create the respective structure, that is the folder and the files for the login component. And I'll import the required packages. From React Google login, I'm importing the Google login package. That's the class which is going to help me to implement the login functionality. You will also need to implement few settings in the Google account for the same, which we will see step by step. Now I'm going to use the Google login and specifying the client ID. Now this actually is the developer console from the Google login, from where this client ID will be passed. Because the authentication is going to be through the Google login, that's why we are using it. You may have various ways. You may have a Facebook account. You may have eStore's its own accounting or user authentication system which you can implement. But at the moment we are trying with the most simple way, that is the Google login. Now the component is ready in a way for the basic structure. Let me just import the component in the app.js now. So I'm just going to say the route, and the route I'm going to configure is the login one. So I'll say /login, and the component we are going to open is the login component. So now if you see the output, the login with Google option is open. Now we are going to code further with the same thing. Now we'll go to the developer console. Here we have the credentials option. I'm clicking on that. It is showing create credentials. Again clicking on it, and OAuth client ID. This is where I'm going to configure the consent screen. I'm configuring the external OAuth consent. Say create. The app name is eStore, for example. I'll say save and continue. Now when you select the credentials, it is asking the application type. Here I'm going to select the web application. The name which I want to define eStore. I'm going to add the URI. And for redirecting the authorized URI, I'm going to use the same localhost, and I click on create. So now we have the client ID generated here, and there is a secret key. The key I am going to assign here in the client ID. Now if I click on this login route and click on the login with Google, you see that there are options coming. The external window is appearing now because this is configured. Now on success, we want to write the further coding. So I'll say on success, what I want is I'm going to call a function that is on success. Let's create the on success function. I'll say const on success. At the moment, we just check it that what exactly is happening. So I'm going to say console log on success and we'll display the result. Let's set the console now and click on the login with Google button. Now you see that it is asking the verification. Now you see that on success we are getting the details. So this is tested that it's working fine. If I expand the profile object, you are going to get all the details. Once the success status is received, next thing is we are going to store it in the session storage. So I'm going to say session storage dot set item. Let's say user details. And I'm going to stringify the result which we have, the profile object, which we already expanded in the console, that I'm going to assign to the user details key with the session storage. In the session storage, we cannot store the JSON object directly, so we need to stringify. It means that while retrieval, when we say get item, we'll have to parse the data. Let's also store this value into the global state, that is the Redux. So we are going to move to the respective file for that. In the Redux, I'm going to create a folder with the name login and the index.js as well, and the action type. So type.js contains the action. I'll say login. Here I'm going to dispatch the action. So it is configured now with the login. Let's move to the reducers. Here also I'm creating a login folder. I'm defining the state now. So the global state will be returned from this place. Let me import the login. So now the login is globally configured with the Redux, that is the global store. Now on successful login, we are going to dispatch. So let's import use dispatch. Now I'm going to use the hook use dispatch. And dispatching the profile object. Now we'll go to the cart and we are going to call it. So let's go to proceed to checkout. Now the first thing I'm going to check that do we have any value in this session storage. So as I mentioned, we'll have to parse the data. Now here I'm putting the condition that if we have the user details, then we are going to proceed to checkout. That is, the payment click will be called. Otherwise we'll have some other route. So I'm using the ternary operator. After the colon, that is if the condition is false, we're going to call another route. So let's put a nav link. So with the state, I'm using one more parameter, redirect to, because we are in the same component. So it will move to the cart. And we are keeping same, proceed to checkout. Alright, now let's try the cart first. Then I click on it and I click proceed to checkout. So now it is asking me to log in. So I click on the login and I select the email. And now you see that on success, it is showing me the information which is proving that it is successful. Now we need to redirect the page. So let's do that. So now I'm going to use the props.location.state because that's where we are going to have the information, and we are going to redirect to the whichever value we have in the state. I'm taking a new state, that is a local state, because when it is redirected, I'm going to store it in the state. And when there is a success, I'm going to say is logged in is true. And here I'm going to put a condition that if it is logged in and there is a value in the item, then it's going to redirect. Alright, now let's add the items to the cart, and then we are going to proceed to checkout. Now you see that there is no value in the session. Let's click on the proceed to checkout. So it moves to the login. Here I click. It's going to ask the email. I select it. And the session storage you see now has the user details. Still it is not getting redirected. Let me just check the flow. I missed the method name. I'll just say set is logged in, not the state name itself. Let's redo everything. Now right now this session is not cleared, so the condition which I placed, let's try that also. If I click here, it's going to directly open the payment. And it's not asking any login details because the session storage is not cleared. Now let's recheck. So I'm going to open the page again. We'll add the items to the cart, but let me first of all open the session storage. So right now we don't have any detail. Now let's go to the cart. Now if I click on proceed to checkout, it is asking me the login with Google. Here I click, again select the valid email, and it's going to authenticate. The session storage is filled now with the user details, and it is redirected to the cart. Let me also correct the cart option because it is view cart. Moving to the cart component, and we'll correct this. Redirect to the view cart, not the cart. Let's try this again. We'll open the eStore page, adding the items to the cart, moving to the cart and proceeding. Now it should redirect to the view cart. Now you see that it has come back to the proceed to checkout. Again I click on proceed to checkout, then it is asking for the payment. So unless the user has logged in, the payment option will not be accessible. Now because we have already logged in, we need to do few corrections from the interface perspective. You see that there is sign in and sign up as it is. So now we should display the logged in person's details. So let's work on that. Let's go to header.js. We already have the global state in which we store the data. So we need to refer the data and assign to the respective place. So session storage has the data, and we are going to take it in user details. So now if we don't have the user details, there will be a different options to display. But if we have the data, then we are going to show the user details itself instead of sign in and sign up. So here I will assign the data. Now there is some data getting displayed. Let's recheck. Now there is sign in option. You see that sign in and sign up. Let's add the values to the cart and proceed to checkout. So it will ask me to log in. Again, I'm going to do the same process. The login image and the login details are displayed. Certainly we can improvise the formatting, but at the moment we are focusing on the functionality. Now the next step is that we have to design the login form. So let me open the login, and we are going to apply some CSS here. All these classes I'm using are the bootstrap classes, so very common and easy to understand. In case if you need more clarification, you can check my other CSS related tutorials, or you can put a message to get details about it. Now you see that the page looks more better and more presentable. Let's rerun the e-store and proceed to checkout. So you see that you have the login page where we don't need the credentials. Directly we are using the Google Authentication. Generally, we have this login form in a separate window. So in the next section, we are going to move this entire login form into a separate window.